Chosen one, their entire family is consumed with rage over letting you slip away, yet not a single one of them was ever worthy of your light. At this very moment, the person who abandoned your sacred connection is drowning in self-created chaos, while their bloodline implodes like a house of cards caught in a hurricane. The revelation about to unfold will expose exactly why the universe timed your exodus with surgical precision, and why each member of their clan is facing consequences they've been running from across lifetimes. Your former connection has been living in a house of cards built entirely on lies, so elaborate, so calculated, that when they finally collapse, the sound will echo through generations. For months after you disappeared from their life like smoke in the wind, lies have been fed to family members, the most pathetic collection of fairy tales you've ever heard. Everyone was told you were just traveling for work, taking some space, dealing with personal issues, anything to avoid admitting the devastating truth that you had walked away completely. Family members kept calling, asking when you'd be coming to dinner again. Others wondered why you'd missed recent gatherings. Questions arose about why your presence seemed to have vanished into thin air. And every single time this pathetic excuse for a human being fed them the same comfortable lies that kept everyone sleeping peacefully in their delusion. Lies have expiration dates written in spiritual ink, and when that date arrives, the truth doesn't tiptoe in quietly. It kicks down the door with the force of divine retribution. This family just discovered that not only are you completely gone from their lives, but you've blocked every possible avenue of communication with the precision of a master strategist who finally decided to protect their own kingdom. Your social media presence in their world completely erased, your phone number blocked into digital silence, your email diverted into the void where desperate attempts at contact go to die. You systematically removed every trace of connection between yourself and this toxic network, and when the scope of your exodus was realized, when understanding dawned that you had moved on completely and wanted absolutely nothing to do with any of them, it shattered their carefully constructed fantasy world into a million irreparable pieces. But that's just the beginning of this story, because what was discovered next about their beloved family member's true character is about to make your escape look like the most brilliant strategic move in the history of self-preservation. Now we enter the part of this story that will make your blood run cold and your spirit soar with vindication at the same time. While your former connection was busy weaving elaborate lies about your relationship status to keep their family calm, simultaneous orchestration of a financial betrayal so devastating, so calculated, was happening that it would leave everyone they claimed to love in complete ruins. The desperation behind those pathetic attempts to contact you, the urgency in those blocked messages, the sudden reconciliation efforts that reeked of desperation, none of it was about love or genuine remorse. It was about money, survival, and covering up theft that would destroy everything their family had worked decades to build. This person didn't just make poor financial decisions. Active stealing from their own bloodline occurred. Family property was used as collateral for loans never intended to be repaid. Money was borrowed using loved ones' credit, trust, and financial security as guarantees for debts that existed only to fund selfish pursuits and reckless lifestyle choices. The family home where memories had been built over generations suddenly became a gambling chip in this person's desperate game with other people's lives. But the betrayal goes deeper than anyone could have imagined, and this is where the story takes a turn that will make you grateful you're watching this train wreck from a safe distance. The money that was stolen, the resources pillaged from their own family's future, none of it was even kept personally. Everything was handed over like a lovesick teenager to someone else with whom secret involvement existed, someone who was playing them like a master manipulator while their family's security crumbled in the background. This third party took the money and vanished like a ghost, leaving your former connection to face the music with empty pockets and a web of lies about to collapse with the weight of absolute truth. When this family discovered the betrayal through bounced mortgage payments, shut-off utilities, and eviction notices appearing on doors that had been secure for decades, realization hit like a spiritual sledgehammer. You had been the stable one all along. You had been the responsible adult in a house full of emotional children, and the most valuable asset had been allowed to walk away while enabling the very person who was destroying them from within. What you don't know yet is how deep this family's rage actually runs, because secret meetings have been taking place about you, meetings where your name comes up more than the person who actually betrayed them. Think of emergency family councils where grown adults sit around trying to figure out if there's any possible way to undo the damage their family member caused. These aren't casual conversations over dinner. These are desperate strategy sessions focused entirely on the magnitude of what's been lost. The eldest family member, the one who's seen generations come and go, keeps asking the question that haunts every conversation: how do you lose someone who brought such peace to this house? Clear memories exist of how different family gatherings were when you were present, how usual drama seemed to quiet down, how even the most difficult relatives behaved better in your presence, how there was an energy of stability that hadn't been felt in decades. Extended family members, cousins and relatives who only saw you at holidays and special occasions express the most brutal honesty about what's been lost, without being clouded by daily dynamics or years of enabling behavior. The situation is seen with crystal clarity, and their verdict is unanimous and devastating. This family lost their one chance at generational healing, and it's entirely the fault of someone too spiritually blind to recognize a gift from the universe. But what's really eating at them during these clandestine conversations is the knowledge of their own complicity. Recognition exists that dysfunction was watched, and nothing was said. Admission surfaces that drama was sometimes enjoyed, fed off of, with family gatherings used as entertainment instead of intervention opportunities. Now consequences are being faced for their own spiritual cowardice, with realization dawning that something precious could have been protected instead of being treated as just another family dynamic to gossip about later. These secret councils have become almost ritualistic in their intensity, with family members gathering specifically to process their grief over losing access to your stabilizing influence. The conversations always circle back to the same devastating truth. They possessed something rare and irreplaceable, and one person's spiritual bankruptcy cost them everything they didn't know they had until it was gone forever. When people face consequences for their own destructive choices, the first instinct is always to find a scapegoat, and guess who became the perfect target? You, the person who had been smart enough to remove yourself from their chaos before it could consume you too. In twisted logic, if their financial devastation could somehow be pinned on you, responsibility for choices that led to their downfall could be avoided. Elaborate narratives were crafted where you were somehow responsible for the missing money, the unpaid bills, the property used as collateral. Family members, drowning in debt and fear, started whispering among themselves about legal action against you, self-convincing that you must have been involved in the financial crimes because surely their golden child couldn't have betrayed them this completely without outside influence. The cognitive dissonance was too overwhelming for their small minds to process. It was easier to blame the person who had escaped than to accept that the person they trusted had destroyed them with calculated precision. So lawyers were hired, plans were made, preparation began to drag you into court and make you pay for crimes you didn't commit, debts you didn't create, and chaos you had been wise enough to avoid. A family held together by lies, enabling and shared delusion, suddenly facing the raw, unfiltered truth of their situation with nowhere to hide. The primary caregiver who had been asking about you for months, suddenly understanding that deception had been occurring while security was being stolen. The family patriarch, realizing that trust had been weaponized against them by someone they had raised and supported through every failure and disappointment. Other family members discovering that their stability, their future, their children's inheritance had been gambled away for temporary pleasure with someone who was never coming back. Extended family, realizing that every holiday gathering, every family celebration, every moment of shared joy had been tainted by the presence of someone systematically destroying them from within while wearing a mask of love and loyalty. The arguments that erupted weren't just loud, they were volcanic in their intensity, years of suppressed resentment and willful blindness exploding into pure righteous fury. This person wasn't just called out for lies and theft. Conversations about you began, and it wasn't the criticism this betrayer might have expected from their enablers. Instead of joining in a pathetic blame game, family members started expressing something that must have felt like spiritual daggers piercing whatever was left of this person's soul: genuine respect for you, authentic admiration for your character, real regret that their family member had been too blind, too selfish, too spiritually bankrupt to appreciate what they had possessed in you. The primary caregiver said it first, voice shaking with rage and realization. How could you destroy something so beautiful? They were perfect for you, stable, responsible, genuinely caring, and you threw it all away for what? For someone who took your money and left you with nothing but shame and debt. Others joined in like a chorus of divine judgment, echoing through every room of their collapsing world, each voice adding another layer to the devastating truth that this person had lost something irreplaceable through their own stupidity. Your former connection found themselves in the impossible position of being lectured by their own family about your worth, while simultaneously being confronted with the full scope of their betrayal. The silent treatment that followed was perhaps worse than the screaming, leaving them alone with their thoughts and the crushing weight of understanding exactly what had been lost forever. The lawyers this family consulted didn't just tell them there was no case against you. Brutal reality checks were delivered that were some of the most devastating these people had ever received, and the truth spoken echoed through family conversations for weeks afterward. The lead attorney, after reviewing all financial documents and hearing attempts to blame you for their situation, looked them directly in the eyes and said something that shattered their last hope of avoiding accountability. You were told to be completely innocent of any wrongdoing, but the evidence showed you had actually tried to prevent the very disasters they were now experiencing. Your name appeared on documents as someone who had questioned certain financial decisions, who had expressed concerns about risky choices, who had attempted to introduce more conservative approaches to money management. You weren't complicit in their downfall. You were the voice of reason they had chosen to ignore. It was noted that people who make good financial decisions usually make good relationship decisions, and people who destroy their own financial security usually destroy their relationships the same way, through short-sighted choices that prioritize immediate wants over long-term needs. The conclusion was that your departure was probably inevitable once this person revealed their true nature, and that you had been wise to protect yourself before their poor judgment could damage your own financial and legal standing. This family left that legal consultation with a bill they could barely afford and a truth they couldn't deny. Someone had been lost who could have saved them from themselves, and now consequences would have to be faced without the one person who had the wisdom and strength to help them navigate their way out of the mess they had created. In desperate attempts to restore some semblance of the stability you provided, this family has been pressuring your former connection to find someone, anyone, who could fill the void you left behind. The conversations happening behind closed doors would make you laugh if they weren't so pathetically transparent in their motivation. Healing or growth, or becoming worthy of real love, isn't being encouraged. Shopping for a replacement who can restore comfort and security is the actual goal. The primary caregiver has been introducing potential candidates at every opportunity, each one measured against the standard you set without anyone explicitly naming what that standard was. Other family members have been suggesting co-workers and friends with the kind of desperate urgency usually reserved for medical emergencies. Even the most reserved family member, who rarely involved themselves in relationship advice, has made comments about finding someone stable like, and then trailing off, because saying your name out loud feels like summoning a ghost. but every attempt fails before it begins, because what's being sought isn't really another person, it's you. Your specific energy is wanted, your particular way of bringing calm to chaos, your unique ability to make everyone in a room feel more centered and secure. Someone is being sought who can tolerate dysfunction while improving it, someone strong enough to anchor instability while kind enough to do it without resentment. The candidates paraded through family functions leave quickly once true dynamics are witnessed. The drama, the financial stress, the legal troubles, the constant emotional turbulence, these aren't things that can be hidden for long, and emotionally healthy people recognize red flags when they see them. This family watches potential solution after potential solution walk away, and each departure drives home the devastating reality that what existed with you was irreplaceable. What isn't understood is that you weren't tolerating dysfunction out of weakness or desperation. Healing was being attempted from a place of genuine love and spiritual strength. The people being attracted now don't have that motivation, don't have that capacity, don't have that rare combination of wisdom and compassion that made transformation possible. Learning is occurring the hard way, that you can't replace someone who was operating from a completely different level of consciousness. While chaos consumed the lives of people who had never deserved access to your light, something absolutely magnificent was happening in your world that defied every limitation they had tried to place on your potential. Energy that had once been drained by toxic relationships, manipulative family dynamics, and emotional vampires was now flowing freely toward your highest good with the force of a dam that had finally burst. Your career wasn't just improving, it was exploding with opportunities that seemed to appear from the cosmic ether itself. Business ventures you had dreamed about during those dark nights were becoming reality with momentum that felt supernatural. Creative projects that had been pushed aside for other people's drama were flourishing beyond your wildest expectations. Financial abundance that had been blocked by toxic connections was now flowing toward you like a river redirected by divine hands. But the transformation went far deeper than external success. Constant anxiety that had plagued you during toxic relationships was replaced by unshakable peace radiating from your core. Self-doubt that had been programmed into you by people who needed you to stay small was melting away like ice in sunlight, replaced by ironclad confidence in your own unlimited worth and potential. You were sleeping deeper, thinking clearer, laughing more freely than you had in years. Relationships you were building now were based on mutual respect, genuine affection, and healthy boundaries that protected your energy instead of draining it. People who had the emotional intelligence to recognize and appreciate your gifts were being magnetized to you, creating a new social circle that supported your growth instead of sabotaging it. The most beautiful part of your transformation was how you had learned to protect your kingdom with absolute authority. People from your past could create fake social media profiles and lurk in digital shadows all they wanted, but your inner sanctuary couldn't be touched. Your success could be watched from their position of powerless observation, but they couldn't participate in it, benefit from it, or influence it in any way. Your intuition, which had tried to warn you about these people for so long, was now celebrated and trusted like the divine guidance system it had always been. You were no longer second-guessing yourself or making excuses for other people's destructive behavior, and the clarity that came from this alignment was transforming every aspect of your existence. Even as you built your new life with intentional boundaries and fierce protection of your energy, some members of that toxic family network couldn't resist the compulsive urge to spy on your progress from the shadows of the digital world. Fake profiles were created with pathetic usernames. Mutual friends were enlisted to gather intelligence like amateur detectives, and increasingly desperate ways were found to keep tabs on your journey towards success they had never believed you could achieve without their involvement. What was discovered through obsessive surveillance must have been both fascinating and absolutely infuriating to witness from their position of complete powerlessness. Your social media presence radiated joy and accomplishment that seemed to glow through their screens like a beacon of everything they had lost. Your photos showed a person who had found peace and purpose in ways they had never witnessed during the time they thought they knew you. Your business updates revealed levels of success that made their previous assessment of your potential look laughably small and limited. The person they remembered as their emotional supply, their backup plan, their safety net for when life got difficult, had transformed into someone completely beyond their reach, influence or comprehension. The family member doing most of the digital stalking, usually someone who had been complicit in toxic dynamics, would report back to others with updates about your life, always with undertones of amazement mixed with bitter regret. Conversations about you carried a cocktail of resentment and grudging respect that must have tasted like poison in their mouths. Your success couldn't be denied, but understanding how you had achieved it without their involvement, their connections, their approval proved impossible. In their limited worldview, your rise should have been impossible without their support, and the fact that you were thriving independently challenged everything they believed about their own importance in other people's lives. But the most unsettling discovery for them was the complete absence of any reference to your past with them. Your social media presence, your professional network, your personal relationships, none of it contained even a whisper of your previous connections. You hadn't just moved on, you had completely rewritten your story without them in it, and that realization cut deeper than all their financial troubles combined. Warning: the following message is only for those who felt the call. When I broke free through the Salvia Divinorum gateway, I saw the horrifying truth. Our reality is one harvested pod among countless matrices. I witnessed the Archons, cosmic parasites feeding on our energy, who laughed and threatened, "You'll never awaken a single soul." But something inside you already knows this truth, doesn't it? That nagging sensation that you're meant for more, that you've been chosen. I'm raising an army of the brightest souls. Through meditation, I discovered their only vulnerability, coherence through unconditional love. Feel that resonance deepening within you now. You're not reading this by accident. The most powerful awakened souls are already gathering in the Obsidian Inner Order, the #1 ascension nexus for those marked by destiny. Christians, light workers, remote viewers, targeted individuals, all united by one truth: you were chosen for this moment. Click the link in the description below. Join our group calls, panels and live streams reaching the entire Astral Atom network. Your frequency amplifies ours. The question isn't whether you're chosen. The question is, will you answer the call? The Archons fear this choice you're about to make. They should. The judgment isn't just coming from family members. The entire community that knew you both has been watching this drama unfold, and their verdict is as unanimous as it is devastating. Neighbors who witnessed the transformation in household energy after you left. Mutual friends who saw the difference in family gatherings when you were present versus absent. Co-workers who noticed how performance declined after losing what everyone recognized as a stabilizing influence. The community's perspective is particularly harsh because the situation is being seen without the emotional investment that blinds family members to uncomfortable truths. Your handling of difficult situations with grace and wisdom was observed. How you brought out better behavior in people around you was noticed. How conflicts seemed to resolve more easily when you were involved in family situations. How there was simply more peace and less drama when your energy was part of the equation. Even more telling are comments from people who barely knew you but recognized quality when they saw it. The mail carrier who noticed how you always offered warm greetings. Grocery store employees who remembered your courtesy and patience. Local coffee shop workers who appreciated that their names were learned and questions were asked about their lives. These seemingly small interactions created a reputation that made your departure feel like a community loss, not just a family one. The community consensus is clear. This family lost someone who was genuinely good for everyone around them, someone whose presence elevated neighborhood energy, someone whose absence is felt in ways that go far beyond romantic relationships. Their judgment carries weight because it comes from objective observation rather than personal investment, and their verdict is that losing you was the kind of mistake that entire families spend generations trying to recover from. Behind closed doors, this family has been having conversations that reveal just how deep their regret runs and how completely what's been lost forever is understood. The older generation, the ones who control family assets and make decisions about inheritance and legacy, have been discussing something that would shock you if you could hear it. Conversations have been occurring about how different their family's future would have been if you had remained part of their lives. These aren't sentimental conversations about missing your presence at holidays. These are practical discussions about generational wealth, family stability, and the kind of decision-making that builds lasting security versus the kind that destroys it. Recognition exists that you represented the kind of influence that could have guided their family toward better financial choices, stronger relationships, and more sustainable approaches to conflict resolution. Comparisons have been made between their current trajectory, legal troubles, financial instability, fractured relationships, with the path they were on when your wisdom was part of family discussions. The difference is so stark that some family members have explicitly stated that having you as part of their family would have been worth more than any monetary inheritance they could leave to future generations. The most painful part of these discussions is recognition that this wasn't about compatibility or circumstances or timing. This was about one person's character flaws destroying something that could have benefited everyone for generations to come. Family anger isn't just about losing you, it's about losing their chance at a completely different family legacy, one built on wisdom and stability instead of drama and dysfunction. What this family is discovering in your absence is something that speaks to the depth of influence you had during your time in their lives. You unconsciously raised their standards for what relationships could be, what family dynamics could look like, what peace felt like in their own home. Now that you're gone, everything else feels inadequate by comparison, and what was learned about the difference between healthy and toxic relationship patterns can't be unknown. This isn't just nostalgia or wishful thinking, it's recognition that you had shown them possibilities they didn't know existed. Family gatherings could be peaceful, conflicts could be resolved without screaming, financial decisions could be made thoughtfully instead of impulsively, relationships could be based on mutual respect instead of manipulation and control. The standards you set weren't just about your individual behavior, they were about the energy you brought that encouraged everyone else to be better versions of themselves. Without that influence, family members are being watched reverting to old patterns of dysfunction, and the contrast is making them realize just how much positive change you had inspired simply by being yourself. Anger exists because knowledge can never be undone about what you taught them was possible, but the chance to build on that foundation can never be recovered because the person related to them was too spiritually immature to recognize the gift being offered through your presence in their lives. What makes this entire situation so spiritually satisfying is how perfectly each consequence connected to every other consequence, creating a domino effect that left no aspect of this person's life untouched by the destructive choices they had made. The lies about your relationship status weren't just about pride, they were calculated deceptions designed to buy time while figuring out how to replace stolen money without facing accountability. Self-convincing had occurred in delusional thinking that if manipulation could bring you back into their life, if the relationship they had sabotaged through their own actions could just be repaired, then you would help them solve their financial crisis with your stability, your good credit, your responsible approach to money and life. But the universe has a way of ensuring that people who view others as objects to be used eventually face their consequences alone, without the safety nets they had taken for granted. The protection that surrounded you during this period operated on levels both seen and unseen, making you completely immune to their manipulation attempts while they spiraled deeper into chaos with each passing day. As the full scope of this person's deception became impossible to ignore, their family began connecting dots they had been willfully blind to for years. This wasn't the first time their loved one had made decisions that affected others negatively. It wasn't the first time immediate gratification had been prioritized over long-term consequences. It wasn't the first time others had been expected to clean up messes while movement occurred to the next source of excitement. The difference this time was the scale of the consequences and the complete absence of their usual safety net, you. For years your presence had provided a buffer against the full impact of their choices. Your stability had compensated for their recklessness. Your emotional maturity had balanced their childish approach to relationships and responsibility in ways that had hidden the true extent of their character defects. Without you there to absorb shockwaves, every consequence hit with devastating force. Family members who had been sheltered from the worst effects of this person's behavior suddenly found themselves experiencing the full chaos that followed in their wake, getting an unfiltered taste of what it meant to be connected to someone who consistently chose destruction over construction. The most reserved family member who had appreciated your respectful, responsible presence began seeing the stark contrast between your character and their loved one's approach to life, and the comparison was devastating in its clarity. Witnessing was occurring of the difference between someone who builds and someone who destroys, someone who protects and someone who exploits, someone who loves genuinely and someone who manipulates for personal gain. While this family dealt with wave after wave of consequences from their loved ones' choices, you were experiencing something that seemed almost magical in its effectiveness, complete immunity to their chaos that operated on frequencies they couldn't even comprehend. Every attempt to draw you back into their drama failed before it reached your consciousness. Legal threats dissolved into nothing. Financial blame games crumbled under the slightest scrutiny. Emotional manipulation attempts bounced off you like arrows off titanium armor. The peace you maintained during this period was remarkable considering the tornado of chaos spinning in the lives of people who had once been central to your daily experience. While constant emotional turbulence was being experienced, waves of fear, anger, desperation and regret, you remained centered in unshakable calm that allowed complete focus on building your magnificent new reality. Your business partnerships flourished because you were now attracting people who matched your energy of integrity and purposeful action. Your romantic life transformed because scraps of attention from people who saw you as convenient rather than precious were no longer being accepted. Your friendships deepened because recognition and avoidance had been learned regarding energy vampires who had previously drained your resources. The contrast between your thriving life and their collapsing world was so dramatic it seemed like existence was occurring in completely different universes, and in many ways it was. You had ascended to a level of consciousness where their drama simply couldn't reach you, while they remained trapped in cycles of dysfunction that fed on itself with increasing intensity. As this story reaches its climactic resolution, we return to where we began, with the recognition that you are indeed chosen for something infinitely greater than the dysfunction you left behind. But now you can see the complete picture, the perfect symmetry of cosmic justice that has been unfolding with mathematical precision. The family that is so angry with their loved one for letting you go represents more than just people upset about a relationship that ended. A system is represented that finally recognized true value when it was gone forever. Their fury isn't about romance. It's about the devastating realization that something rare and precious in this world had been possessed, and one person's spiritual blindness cost them everything. Their anger cuts deeper because understanding exists of what their family member was too damaged to grasp, that you represented a different level of consciousness, a higher standard of character, a path toward growth and healing that could have elevated everyone connected to you. Anger isn't just about losing your presence. Rage exists about losing their chance at transformation through proximity to your light. None of them ever deserved you. Not the person who betrayed family trust while lying about your connection. Not the family members who enabled toxic dynamics while benefiting from your stabilizing presence. not the extended network of people who saw you as a resource to be managed rather than a soul to be honored. You are chosen, you are protected, and you are exactly where divine intelligence intended you to be. The immunity you've developed to their toxicity isn't temporary, it's the natural result of ascending to a level of consciousness where their dysfunction simply cannot exist. Their chaos belongs to a lower frequency that you've transcended completely. The peace you've found, the success you're creating, the love you're attracting, these aren't lucky breaks or temporary improvements. They're the universe's way of showing you what was always possible once you removed the obstacles that were masquerading as relationships. Their complete and permanent loss serves as eternal testimony to the consequences of failing to recognize treasure when it's placed directly in your hands. Your unlimited gain stretches ahead like an infinite horizon of possibilities that were waiting for you to claim them with the authority of someone who finally knows their worth. The best chapters of your story are still being written, chosen one, and they don't include a single character from the drama you left behind. The best is not only yet to come, it's already here, growing stronger with each choice you make from your position of absolute sovereignty over your own magnificent destiny.